Hello, everyone. It's very nice to see you. Thank you for your presence, for your curiosity. I am very happy to be presenting today's platform conversation, which is the first conversation that responds to Anawana Haloba's exhibition that you might have seen downstairs, From This Darkness I Shall Grow, created by the exhibition curator Sylvia Lesdottir and the director Kjersti Solbakken, which is also the Festspillingen this year. It is the first conversation. There's going to be a few more, so I'm going to be introducing our guests today. It is an exhibition that is free all weekend. If you haven't visited it, go ahead and tell your friends as well to come this weekend and return as well. And it's an exhibition that will last until the 6th of September. So you have time to visit and revisit. There's many voices in this exhibition to listen and attend to. Yeah, my name is Jade Mélie Barget. I'm the live curator here at Bergen Kunsthal. So I work with the live team to bring you these platform talks. And today that's Sophia, Al, Hans Jakob, and Maria. So it's a talk that will be recorded. There's a camera. So if you don't want to be in the frame, just be aware of where the camera is. And it will be released in approximately 2 weeks on our website and platforms. So it lasts 60 minutes, and then there's time for questions. We will circulate the microphone so that the question can be recorded as well. The restrooms are here, and there's also hibiscus tea that's been brewed by Celia. Please help yourself. There's a few more. They're really nice and not too sweet. The hibiscus is also a flower that the community of sowers that I'm sure we'll speak about is currently growing in Bergen and will be placed in the exhibition at a later date. But I'm sure more on this very soon. So I'm going to introduce our guest. So for those who don't know, Anawana Haloba is a Zambian-Norwegian artist living and working in Oslo and Livingstone. She has an extensive international career and exhibition history, so I will mention the few recent exhibitions. So that includes the solo exhibition I Want to Tell You Something in the National Museum in Oslo. And in 2025, so this was this year, and in 2025, Anawana Haloba also participated in the Berlin Biennale, passing the Fugitive on with an experimental opera. She has recently been nominated for the Lorck Schive Art Prize and the Artes Mundi Prize. In addition to this, she's also a founder of the Livingstone Office for Contemporary Art, LOCA, which has functioned since 2014 as an artist-initiated nonprofit library, research center, and a platform for collective experimental collaboration. Currently, LOCA is working on a perennial, a large-scale international exhibition to be presented in Livingstone, Zambia, and Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe, on the 12th of September 2026. And in addition to this, she's also Associate Professor of Contemporary Art, specializing in decolonial theory in artistic practice at the Oslo National Academy of the Arts, and a guest advisor at the Grieg Academy in Amsterdam. And you have also recently submitted your thesis or your PhD at Bergen University this year, so it's a very rich year. Trond Lossius is an artist investigating the relationship between sound and place through field recordings, audiovisual installations, and collaborative cross-disciplinary projects. He has a keen interest in artistic research and serves as professor and head of the PhD at the Faculty of Film, TV and Games, University of Inland Norway, and professor as well at the Grieg Academy, University of Bergen. Trond has been a long time interlocutor with Anawana, so that makes this conversation extra special and a great chance to explore the depth of practice. So this is the first conversation. There will be another one, the 13th of June, taking place between Anawana Haloba and the curator Elvira Diangani-Ose, around this same time at 3, actually. And another platform on September 5th at the end of the exhibition with Dr. Memory Biva. So now I will hand the word to you, Trond. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for the invitation to be able to continue the conversation with you, Anawana. And first of all, I want to congratulate you on the exhibition that opened a few days ago, which I think is, considering everything you've done over the last year, I don't know how you have the capacity you have, but I'm deeply impressed, I have to say. And it's also inviting a lot of things to talk about. So I have a list here, and I'm sure we only get through a little bit of it. But preparing for the day, I was thinking that even though both of us work with sound, I don't think we've talked much about sound or music as such in our conversations for the last few years. So I thought this time, I would start with one of the words that is mentioned in the text you can get, with the background information on the exhibition, polyphony. So I thought we could start, thinking about polyphony in relation to your work, and maybe we should first just say what that is, and then we can start thinking about what polyphony, how that operates in the work that you just finished here at the Bergen Kunsthall.
I told Trond that probably he has to catch me because my head is in the air at the moment, but I'm going to try to talk about polyphony, not necessarily to define it, but maybe to speak about it from the practice of Ngoma Buntibe or Wudima. So in the third room, if you stand and lean on the wall where you come in, you hear these flutes which are sounding on top of each other, which kind of creates this kind of cacophony of sounding, which in a way creates a polyphonic kind of experiment or experience. And but also you could think about a polyphonic experience also from ritual, because actually with the Ngoma Buntibe, it's also a ritual, but also just a ritual that uses voices. Whether you want to go to the Congo Basin, where you have the Pygmy people, which use voice in different, kind of registers, but with a lot of them in a group, which creates this kind of polyphonic sounding. I don't know, maybe that was the definition of polyphony.
Because I think, polyphony is, just to say, if someone don't know the word from before, and it's often, I think like in music, you can have like one tradition where you have one melodic line being sung, either by one person or maybe more than one person singing or playing instruments, but all like following the same melody or maybe embellishing on it. And then the other is where you have several melodies intertwining. So there's a rich tradition of this in Europe, which is what I was first exposed to studying composition here at the Grieg Academy. But I think, as with many other kind of music traditions, I think like what I've encountered, in meetings with you is how you're pointing to these or similar things also existing around the world, obviously, and in particular, also in the Southern African Zambian context. So I think like the work that we counter first when we're entering here with the 14 different voices, they are. Can you say something about what what material, what we're encountering there?
Well, they are all different melodies, and they all come from different geographies. And also, coming from different geographies also means different positions of kind of reacting to different kind of similar histories. And I think because when I was writing my thesis, I came across another word which you can also connect it to polyphony, which is counterportal notion within classic music. And I think I got obsessed with the idea of how I illustrate that. Also having woodima, because you see there's a certain kind of the idea that each one of the instrument attached to the river, which is the bigger sculptures from an oak, Norwegian oak tree that is over 200 years old, and with horns from cow or Watuse cows from East Africa, and there's one little springbok there, and there are also waterbuck horns in the material which I've used, but like the springbok and the waterbuck, they also come from, actually the one comes from the woodima, which I mentioned about, and the waterbuck comes from a similar tradition which is for the Tonga plateaus, because the woodima comes from the Zambezi Tongas, which these are the settler Tonga people that are on the Zimbabwean side in Binga area, and on the Snazongwe in the Zambian side, which lived from the river. And there's a whole story behind it about the colonial project of building a dam on the Zambezi River in the 1950s, and that was distracted by this flood, which happens every 10 years, which the local people, the Tonga, believed that was their god, the river god, that was answering on their behalf of kind of the violence which the colonial government was doing. And what is happening there, because the mpeta, which is this, it's also the sounding of when something has happened which is sorrowful, which is in the community, that it needs to be announced. So that water buffalo horn is used to sound the message, and the community gather. And the same with the other one where the springbok comes from. The woodima is also used to summon, to summon the spirits of the dead. So when you come in, of course, you hear also the different layers of the different people which I asked to sing or hum a protest song, which I'd given them like 14 protest songs, which they became also very creative. I have a fellow friend and artist from Haiti and the States who hummed actually a song from Haiti, a protest song from Haiti. And you know that Haiti has got a very rich story when it comes to the colonial history. And that layering also kind of brings different positions of histories that are encountering, but at the same time, instead of creating like a chaos, they create somehow a harmony. And I talked about trying to illustrate Edward Said's contemporary idea, bringing it into literature, in trying to understand how we can read history, not from a one position, but also thinking that what about a different position which is somehow erased in the story. And this idea, he came about it when he was reading, I think that's Anne Bronte's Mansfield, which is talking about a story of a sugarcane plantation master who has this very rich space in the UK, which is called Mansfield. But then at the same time, the story is about the lives in Mansfield, and nobody talks about where the wealth comes from. And so Edward Said is talking about how do you bring the story, the histories of the position of where the people, where this excavation of wealth is happening, and what is happening, what is remaining there. So this is, I don't know if but this is kind of the story behind the work, and what I'm trying to illustrate somehow using music and using the different historical position of the lady from Congo who sings Banaba Congo, which is a song which is actually created at the when the Belgium leaves the DRC, which was Zaire, and then Lumumba comes in, and this is the song which Lumumba is ushered into power. Banaba Congo, unite and unite Africa, and it's really, like even for me, who is like receiving this and editing, it becomes also very, you become humbled because also people are singing because they are also humming for themselves, and again humming to share, humming to share. So, that was
thank you. Because I was also, it's like when I was meeting your work downstairs, initially I was also thinking, something I also experienced in my own listening and field recording practice, that when I was studying polyphony or kind of counterpoint, which linked to Renaissance music, within that, the idea was that even though there were many voices, they were like coming together and all like pointing to God, which was sort of like the worldview dominating at the time. But in your polyphonic world is a world of complexities, of multiple places, multiple crises and political situations, multiple societies, people, and so on. So it's like this polyphony is also one that is embracing like a complex and rich world in a way.
Yeah. I guess the story of humanity and humanity trying to to kind of serve itself or survive is a very kind of a polyphonic in a way that it meets somewhere, that at the end of this whole idea of trying for survival, that there's actually a whole one idea of people wanting to be just people and caring for each other. So it doesn't matter where you are. And for me, I think it's also, I'm always bringing this up to think like, how do we think of these positions and also how do we own them, so that we can also think of caring for these places like we would care for where we are, So, I don't know if that answers you, but now, like, I have this, like, my collaborators in my mind, they start thinking.
And I also think that it's like, once there's sound, also someone's needed to listen. And I know that listening is something that is very, very important.
The position of the viewer in the work is also very important. This is where you are somehow forced to go and try to find where the sound is coming from. And that's always this idea of how to, because the discussions always starts from here, with my 7 companions. And then there's a conversation with literature, with the stories of other people. But I think the conversation does not end there. The idea that how do you take this conversation to the person who's also kind of viewing at you and also or the work itself. And I think, so maybe I always have played with this idea that you have to follow. There's this call and answer where actually the viewer is also somehow confronted. And that's also because I believe that conversations should be confrontative sometimes, and we should allow that confrontation. So when you come into the work, like some of the operas before, like you feel like the person who is screaming in the opera, because this is humming. So in a way it goes to the soul, to the kind of emotions, whereas the other one starts first with these words you meet, and then you start deciding whether do you want to respond, or do you just want to listen, or what do you think? So so the call and answer.
Thanks. If we move from that room right, we encounter like the biggest room of the 4. There's this building within the room, this room within the room, which according to the information, is egg-shaped. And I think for me, this where like there was sort of a commonality between that and what I've seen in some of the other earlier works that you do very often, like working in circles or dealing with circles. Like, for instance, some years ago there were the How to Repair My Grandmother's Basket, an experimental opera installation that was first showed at Koda here, and then later on it's also been shown in Milan and in Trondheim, and also in Wales. And also, I think, for the ones that saw the exhibition at the National Museum, they're looking for, I always say this word for musaba.
Yes,
Which is also where you also enter into like room. Can you give us some background on those rooms? Or
I think they all come from the idea of the circle as the square. I mean, there are different lines because over the years I've been very much interested with African philosophy or technology or what you call African cosmology. And what I have discovered is also how all these lines kind of also affect the architecture you see. It affects religion, and first of all, the circle, of course, when you also talk about the village square, we use the word square, but usually it is a rotunda or something, a circular thing, and not really a square, but we still refer to it as a square. So for me, that's the square which kind of revisits there. And maybe for scholars here, maybe that are coming from religion and maybe also philosophy, maybe you've heard of the Chokwe cosmology traditions, which believe that they look at the world as that it's a circle, and the circle has a cross, and the line in the middle of that circle is what they call Kalunga, which is the God line. And there's the day, and then they separated the day and night. And African traditions, African architectures also somehow imitate that. They repeat the same structure. So when they build the village, you have the houses around, and you have maybe the kraal for the animals on one side, and then on the other side you have a barn for the food, and maybe you have the chief staying on the other side, and then there are all these houses coming in. And the one in the National Museum, I was actually trying to, physically imagine homes coming out of the home and into the square. But in this work, for instance, I'm not so much imagining about the coming into the square, but I'm imagining what is happening in that secular square, how this kind of the echo of the life of the opera which is happening, of the cooking, of the storytelling kind of reverberates in the same space. And so this is why I was very obsessed on speaking to the walls, because you have the three-headed sculpture is pointing into the walls, so that the walls also kind of amplify the voices into the community. And it was interesting that when Caroline, who is partly from Lesotho, because Lesotho is one of the places in southern Africa which still has this the idea of the village, the traditional that is somehow intertwined within the community. So there are different elements of what was before, which kind of still exist, in spaces. So, and then she was talking about this secular space which we have grown up, Kambaelapa, where you run and you hear somebody talking and you run to the other side. And so this is what she was, her experience of coming here and growing up in Lesotho. So I don't know. I think I've explained.
Because we're thinking of that, but also this time it was egg-shaped, you
It was
know, and I
egg-shaped, yeah.
asking you what I was asking you
Yeah.
yesterday, you know,
Yeah.
you know.
I think I did give a different answer altogether, isn't it?
I think yesterday you said you didn't know why it was egg-shaped, but for me it's quite interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it's this idea that it's birthing out, and at the same time it's announcing. You know, like there's a projection,
Yeah.
but at the same time it encloses you inside with
Yeah.
the sound.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you've tried. I think you should try to play around when you're in the space. You know, go to the wall and listen. And, you know, and also how the sound is behaving. But also, I think, actually, I know that there are no chairs in that part of the sculpture. But I think one thing of you know, for me, I think it would be to sit actually in the walls of the sculpture and just engage with the work in one or another. So that's also maybe a way of viewing the work. Yeah.
Because I think for me, I was also thinking that, I mean, it's like the egg is also like the seed of new life, which I think in one way resonates with the title of the exhibition, From This Darkness I Shall Grow, that there's this new life coming out of something. But then I was also thinking that, you know, among the San people at least, you know, it's like the ostrich egg is also used for carrying water, so it's also a vessel.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking that the shape also can look like arms embracing. And as you say, it's also projecting outwards. I just felt that it was a very, it's a very kind of like a rich shape, you know, that's inviting many ways of being read. And then I was in again this morning before we met earlier today. And then I also noticed that when I walked on the other side of it, it looked like a hut. You know, from the other side, it looked like a hut.
Yes.
Which I only discovered then. So it's a very, very rich shape, I think. And as you already started talking about like the acoustics, which are very sort of like peculiar and effective in that. So that's like, you know, when you experience this work, really recommend also playing around by moving close to the walls, because it's like, you know, among the keywords that I, you know, wrote for myself here, it's like the next one I have is listening, voices, walls, and invisibility. Because it's like one thing that occurred to me is that, you know, in particular when I'm on the right-hand side, listening to the voice that is coming through the speaker that is projecting that way, it also really feels like there's a person in front of me. So it's not coming from the speaker any longer.
Yes.
But it's like, you know, it's a person, I can't see it, but I can hear it. And that person really manifestates in the room.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess, I mean, I don't know what to say about that, because that's when I was talking about how do you confrontation, like, yeah, because I've always thought that when we talk about history from different positions, or when we talk about how do we think about the different situations which are happening in the world today, that somehow probably maybe that confrontation is what we need. And the text, even if both texts are written at a different time of actually my, it's also like, also for me it's interesting to kind of, because most of the time when I'm working with new works, I also create new text. But this text actually, one is written in 2012 and one is written in 2016. And it was just interesting to see how that this insistence on these conversations, which I'm using in my work, that it's still going on. And I think that part of trying to confront the different situations in the world, because I think it's very important that we don't live as if somehow that nothing is happening. Because from a philosophical understanding of what completes my humanity is your humanity, then I think my humanity fails if I'm not able to also be able to speak out. And my way of speaking out is in the way of creating these works, and trying to confront another person to invite them to be with me. And so these kind of images coming, and also how people react to the sound or how they receive it. It's also something which my mind likes to play also. What if I was a viewer? How will I want to be confronted with this work? So I stay so long into my head, so that it makes even the people working with me worry and in trouble. And I think maybe people here also experience that. So, but that's also because there's a whole kind of a ritual that is happening also when one, I think, is creating work, but also a very vulnerable position to be in, because you are. I have not experienced any of these atrocities, or even, the bomb that fell in Livingstone when I was young. I was just a few months old, and I wouldn't have had, this is the Ian Smith, Zimbabwe, Rhodesia, and the guerrilla fighters that were based in Livingstone. So I totally have no kind of any understanding of how one would feel in that situation. So from speaking from an observer, it's also this kind of, this vulnerable position where you are trying to actually not really speak for anyone's position, but try to create a community of people to think together, and what can we do, So.
And I think that's one thing that I encountered to see in your practice, that there's not just will to, but an obligation to listen, to reach out, and to let oneself be confronted by the existence of others and by the existence of what's happening to others around the world. Where I found when this person becomes embodied in this space, even though I can't see this person, it's also because I think in one way, very often this is beyond our optical vision. It's beyond our own local society, but there's this kind of commitment and responsibility to reach out and try to be with others, in a way like that.
Yeah, but maybe also I think the other thing which I always think of the sculptures, I never think of them as the object that is in its own, but it's the object that is the vessel.
Yeah.
The vessel that is the people I'm speaking to, that they become the vessel within this sculpture. That when you confront the sculpture, you're not confronting so much the object, but you're confronting the object that becomes alive, and it's this vessel that speaks for itself, that dares to speak, that has this will. I shall surprise you with this will, which is, and maybe again thinking of Romaine Morton as poem, which is also, she's writing from the position of being an Aboriginal woman within a society that has continuously oppressed the Aboriginal people, and talking about how will is one of those things, and being able to surprise the Prime Minister. So I think, so.
And it's, as you worked on the PhDs, I think, also, this is not material that is available to everyone yet, but I like experience that you have a very articulate set of methods that are always present in how you work. And one of them, that took time for, took a while for me to understand it. I think I'm still kind of, developing it, is this idea of the repair. Would you say a little bit about that?
Repair, which is, it's actually written in a way that you have the re on its own and the pair on its own as two words, which are also one word, and they both, within the word and within the concept, they do different things, but different things which are connected. You have the re, which is of course, repairing, as in, putting things together. And I think the first time I started thinking about it, I think it came also from the conversation. I would say I'm quite lucky that I've got two parents that are interested in kind of traditional knowledge systems and technologies, which they speak about that. I mean, my mom is a staunch Catholic, but she's one of the people that was very much at the forefront of starting what they call inculturation in Catholic Church in Zambia, where they brought basically the traditional dances and the drums and the we call it silimba. It's of course sometimes within the Western idea they say xylophone. It's not a xylophone. It's a silimba because it's long, and it can be played by 6 people. But this was brought into the church, and if you think back, you realize that actually the drum was one of the things which were banned by colonialism. And actually, what started the revolution in Haiti was because one of the slaves was playing a drum and playing the belly drum, and then he was arrested for playing the drum, and that actually then turned into the revolution for independence. But there you go. I'm like thinking, like, did I forget the question? What is the question?
We were talking about, I was asking about repair.
Yes, yeah. I'm coming there. So if we are going to speak about, for instance, speaking from within the idea of Catholicism in the Catholic Church, if we are going to speak about religion and how we pray, I think it is very important also that the people that are praying can also be able to recognize themselves in the way in which they are able to show, prayer for the God, which has been introduced to them. Also, if they are able to show the kind of different methodology or modalities which were existing within their own religions of praying to God, and that in itself, for me, is a way of putting 2 different ways of being able to express, fellowship, but also to express gratitude to whatever being which is there. So that's one thing. So that's already putting 2 cultures together, but for the purpose of worship. And then there the idea of in a way like the goal which has been tried to be achieved has been achieved by that process. And then when I was thinking, because talking to my fellow people of my generation, talking about how it's very difficult for us to be able to bring these objects back to Africa, because when they were taken, there was a tear which was happening. Something was torn, and it's very difficult to bring it together because there's this huge trauma of rupture in the middle. So how do you bring that together? And for me, this is also where the re also becomes not just the repairing, because repairing is where you are able to take 2 skins together and sew it together, but it's also about bringing something which patches, or quilting, where, in different cultures you have where people take different pieces of cloth and put together, and, you bring, like we would call, like when you were a kid and you see other kids, like if they had something torn, then there was another patch put, we call it chigamba, which has been, so, and there's one sculpture here which has actually as a chigamba. It's like one of the smaller driftwood. It had a hole in it and we couldn't repair it. And then I had this small piece of marble which I smuggled into Norway. So I hope nobody arrests me. So we had then to kind of push it into that hole. So you see this hole, it has got the tiny elbow, black elbow. That black small elbow is actually ebon wood from Zambia. So that's another way of remembering something. So that's again bringing material to kind of be able to create, because it's always difficult when you're working with history to kind of have a whole story. So then you have to start putting two different stories and then think of how those stories kind of, what is actually are they talking about, and how do they again speak back to the idea of humanity. And in my PhD, I do so by bringing Frantz Fanon and Bjørnson, not necessarily to try and theorize about their work from a kind of a literature or where they're writing from, but also to show two histories that are responding to a kind of a modernistic project in the case of Norway, industrialization in Norway, and also the position of women. But in the case of Africa and Algeria, in decolonizing from settler colonialism and the position of women there. So that's the pairing. And I think when you also bring it on, again, the position which was the counter point idea of Said, again, is that repairing, because we can only understand literature in its fullness if it's able to also bring different position from that history. In the same way with art, we can only understand art fully if the conversation is coming from different positions and we can all speak, because nobody is always, because if I hide something here and I ask somebody, what can you see from there? What you'll be seeing probably is just a magnified finger, which is distorted. But the person on the other side will say, of course, that is your finger. So that's already two different positions, and those different positions, they have to be paired in order to be able to create this kind of complete story. But this is just my, this is, I get excited about this, but this is also how I see the world. This is also because of also what I have learned from my parents. My parents come from totally different cultures, but every time I'm making work, I'm lucky that on my mother's side, there's this long kind of history of different, which is also written, but which is also written in this, like they have this this culture where there's one historian that there are all these young people at different age levels. And whenever there's our ceremonies or different positions, he stands there and he goes, oh, sure. And then he goes, he starts from where we come from, from the fact that we are all coming from a woman who decided to have children with God, who is Mbuyu, and where we come from. So there are no men in this story. And he starts talking from there, and he comes to the story of the people today. And for me, I think it's always very interesting to kind of now think about these stories and then talk about my father's people, and then finding that, there are actually links here which you can actually talk about, So I think so the pairing is I don't know if I'm explaining. I can tell you I have written it in a better articulated way.
But I'd never heard this example before. So which I think is a really, really good one. So no, because I think like that idea of repair is something that I've kind of brought back to my own thinking. After having been given it from you, because I think in our Western societies and on a world basis, I think like currently there's this very strong energy of polarizing. So there's it's either this or that, or as George Bush said, it's like either you're with us or you're against us, which is very confrontational, conflict generating. And I think your way of saying that there's several things existing. And we have to bring these together, and when we do that, we have to also recognize the differences and the wounds that might be. But then we have to find some kind of reconciled way of bringing them together, which is not as if if they never had been different, but kind of finding a more meaningful way forward, which I also think that you have a word for, which is also part of it, the imaginary reclaim.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we should go into that. That's probably another one. But it also, it's like, as I saw this exhibition in particular, also looking into the three objects, within that room, which all have like speaker cones. Then I also realized, I don't know why I didn't kind of think of this before, because very often you also worked with stitching and with weaving, and suddenly it's like, no, this is also, also related, and the polyphonic. It is about these things that are like, get interwoven and, come together, and where some kind of combined reality is negotiated between all of them. So, but another thing is, on the walls in that rooms, on the inside, which is sort of like patterned, made from clay, ash, and
charcoal and manioc or cassava, depending on where you're coming from in the world. So, I think in the beginning of the idea, I really wanted to see if I can actually have enough ash to paint the whole wall with ash, which we do as well. I mean, ash is a very I think I've grown up with ladyfingers, okra. The okra, the one which not the leafy one. So we call it ladyfingers sometimes. But sometimes we cook it. When we cook it, we take, if you don't have cooking soda, you take the ash, you put it in a cup, and you let all the ash simmer. And then that water actually is a very good cooking soda. But also when you are sick, you can drink that water as well. You put the ash, then you let it go down, settle down, and you drink the water, which is a very good medicine for stomach, And this I've grown up, but there's this kind of medicinal part, and the white powder, which we have, the manioc, in a way to chase demons, to kind of create a kind of a safe space. Sometimes you put that powder on the door. Actually, there's a young Zambian artist who works with I think she has also worked with ash in a way that she uses it. She has these dishes of ash in the place in the way we would use it in tradition. Her name is Gladys Kalicini. You can check her work. So for me, I think was in a way of trying to see whether, in a way, how also I create a safe space. But because you also have like herbs which I've used in the work, like cinnamon, cloves, which is also used for cleansing, and you also have sage as well, which is also used in the same way of creating this safe space, which I've used there. So in a way, it's like I have actually created. There are totally no evil spirits there. Any one of you can go and see it and have conversation with the work, and I don't know if I answered.
And I think I see, we're running out of time, but I think if we had another 45 minutes to talk, I think I would, because it's like when I was looking at how you had done that, I was also thinking, one can look at that with sort of like a painterly mindset, but then I was also realizing that probably this was like done also in a certain way, which is
with hands. And when I was standing after this was done, I was standing there and saying to Shashti that, the wall looks like Malu, and then I said Maru, because then in a way my counterparts, because my mom's language is called Silozi, which is spoken in Lesotho as Sutu, in different dialects in South Africa, Botswana, and Namibia. So in Botswana, it's called Maru. And I said Maru, and I told her that one of the books on the list, which I gave you, is by Desi Head, and it's called Maru. And I'm hoping that this is also another way of, because part of the work, I guess, as I said, that most of the work, what I'm thinking of is also I'm summoning the dead as well. So when you are in the work, you're also encountering the dead, So in a way, it's not so much of just a protest, but it's also how you think about summoning, and also the weaving as well. Summoning is like how Hannah Regan also becomes part of this. Not just about that some of her work reminds me of the Tonga basket weavers, but also in a way, how do I bring her? Because it's a lot of. If you go into my research, there are a lot of dead people. And also just another confession to make. I'm also one person, like when I'm procrastinating while it's making, I end up maybe watching a whole 3-hour dead ceremony for a Nigerian technology philosopher, which I never knew about. I just stumbled on it, and I watch a whole, funeral ceremony of somebody I don't know. But somehow maybe this is the conversation with the dead, and I'm hoping that you can encounter it in that, and that this painting, or the plastering with the hands, that has created this safe space where you can encounter and have conversation, but also as a way of thinking about all these people that are dying everywhere, that are dying in these wars. If they had to come, in the space, no, I think maybe we should find methods, in which we could actually be confronted by this situation, because maybe somehow we are not being, that maybe our strategies are not really effective, because maybe the dead have to come and talk to us. And I think this is also in the other opera in the National Museum, because the big opera you see in the big sculpture, it's Mukamsaba herself, it's Lanshina and Lucy Sichone, which are these very strong activistic women, which are all dead, which have come as vessels to speak, to speak to, to also, just be able to push us. It's I don't know. It's Hannah Arendt as well is there.
Thank you, Anawana. And I think that we only been through this talking really about like 2 of the 4 rooms, but I think like this ceremonial dimension here, I also definitely see further on. But that will have to leave for another conversation, because I think we should also open up for questions here. So thank you.
Thank you.
And is it? I don't know if there's any questions here, or. And if you have some microphones that can be passed around, And if they're not, then I certainly have enough of questions. So we. But are there any questions? Yeah. Jostein, I know you. Your name.
Hello, Anawana. Thanks for this conversation with Trond, and also for your work. My name is Jostein Gundersen, Vice Dean of Research at the Faculty of Fine Art, Music and Design. And I think my question is quite short. Not in the paper we have here for this exhibition, but in your conversation and also in relation to the work at Nationalmuseet, you used the concept of opera. And I wondered if you could elaborate a little bit on what opera means in your work. Thank you.
I think first and foremost is also because I am borrowing from 2 operatic practices. from Southern Africa, though within musicology they are always referred to as folk opera, which for me, I have taken the word folk, so because I also don't understand why should the other one be folk opera and the other one just opera, when they're doing the same thing, So that's the first position which I've decided to do, but also because I think just that in the way I'm working also with the text, and also I'm so scared to use the word composition because I'm not a musician. But at the same time, of course, there is a certain kind. If we kind of undress composition from music and use it as a word, as in to compose something, that I am composing, thinking of what's the opening glee, what's the climax, and what's the closing glee, which I think that within African opera, and which is also in different forms, which could be the performance of the masquerades on a square, which has different ways. But again, what is also interesting, it also goes even further, because we believe, like for instance, when the masquerades are performing, because there's this idea which is believed that when the masquerade comes to perform, that is also the moment in which the living and the dead meet their God. So it has also got another level. And if opera was also trying to reach out the climax of being able to talk about tragedy, but also tragedy in a way that actually there's also myth that comes into play, that it does itself probably better than Western opera, I don't know. But this is my view. So that it goes beyond what Western opera is achieving in the idea of the voice. And again, I think if you think about opera and take away the idea, because the other one which I use, which is called Wudima, it's all about voice. And then when you talk about, not Wudima now, mixing, Giavilo, it's all part of the voice. And if you are in the opera at the National Museum, you hear this voice which is coming. And what will be interesting is actually to see them perform and see how just the dramatics are, which is really like, you go there thinking like, it's an experience, it's a happening, which is structured. And because when you see it, sometimes you don't even think like, before, I think as a kid, it was just, it's a traditional performance, and you forget about that. And then when you grow up and you start reading about it, and then you see all these references of folk opera, and then you start thinking about what is this about. But also, I don't know if I'm answering you properly, Jostein, but I'm just bringing this kind of situation, like to kind of from practice as a child who's growing in these cultures and observing, but also learning through research that in this idea, when I was trying to find like also practices of people that had taken this and tried to bring it within the structure of opera, with in the concert hall or in an opera, and then I think I found Duro Lupo, who was from Nigeria in the 50s, and also how just the projection of voice was done. And this is actually how I actually discovered Chinese opera. And because through Duro's, the women that were singing, and also seeing how actually it was really like somehow we're mirroring each other. And for me, that was very interesting as an observer, not somebody who has studied music, but as an observer of culture, and how also this idea of how this is also how I'm repairing through opera, that I'm bringing these practices together, and also to just show that, okay, here we are not trying to speak from opera from a theoretical kind of point of it, but from a practice point of it, and see how these practices actually are similar. And maybe by doing that, actually creating a theory in which these things can be connected and not just be seeing them in isolation. So I don't know if that answers the question. It's just that, yeah. Yeah.
Do you just have the microphone? Yeah.
Yes, when you mention opera and the origin of opera, and like Western opera in the early Baroque or the Baroque period, it was staging of mythology, or Greek-Roman mythology, cultivated by the aristocratic taste. So it was, and that is also a difference to folk, but in ballet, they took in that period also the folk dances to use in the ballet. In the classical, so-called classical ballet, that was after they moved onto stages with them. So there are many interesting parallels. And you mentioned also Chinese opera, which is also interesting. So there could be written a kind of cultural history of opera traditions in different parts of the world. And one would see that there are lots of resemblance and many things coming together.
Like similarities.
The same patterns. But you said you were wondering about the difference between opera and folk opera. Well, folk opera is a specific Central European tradition. You have in Vienna the Volksoper, and it's for more of the working class people, and an audience like that does not exist so much in Scandinavian context. But that is the origin of the Fox opera, the concept of folk, which can be expanded in other ways, of course. But anyhow, thank you for your conversation. It was very interesting.
And it's also a very interesting point you talk about, of course, the fact that classical opera was also kind of reflecting and creating pure art from Greek and Roman mythology. But what is interesting also, if we push it further, is kind of like what Greek mythology also kind of how it relates to, for instance, Yoruba mythology in Nigeria, and seeing at these parallels, and actually kind of thinking that, we can extend that conversation on how actually mythology itself is also not something which is stagnant within this space. My 14-year-old has been very much kind of thrown her head into Greek mythology. I keep on saying to her that I think you should also check Yoruba mythology. You'll see how there are quite of parallels and similarities, which would be interesting to look at. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Anawana.
Well, thank you very much.